Hello and welcome to What's Not Gas. Today I'm very tired. Tired of not having a good tier list for cargo bikes, so let's go. Actually, I'm really tired, but needs to be done, so let's go. Cargo bikes are very popular these days, and when I say cargo bikes, I kinda hate myself because it's such a broad name that it needs to be slimmed down, let's say, to separate categories. We already covered the long-tail bike. It's a separate category that falls under cargo bikes, but is called a long-tail because specifically of that long tail at the end of the bike. In Europe, at least, when we say cargo bike, we actually mean a box bike, a long john, or for the Dutch, the Belgians, and even some Americans, the Bakfiets. Why is this called the Bakfiets? Well, bak means box and fiets means bike, so the box bike is one of the most popular cargo bikes that has traveled Europe since, let's say, 20 to 30 years. Now, with the electric support that comes to cargo bikes and the changes in laws in many European cities and probably in the United States as well, we see that the cargo bike, the electric cargo bike, is making its return or is growing in popularity, especially for B2C consumers like probably you and me, but also for B2B, for businesses that need to have alternatives to move inside the cities. Anyway, in Europe we saw two countries that never stopped making cargo bikes, that's Denmark and the Netherlands. So it's of no surprise that these two countries are leading the market in Europe, but as we'll soon see, the Germans and the French also have some brands that are right there with them. Today I'll be making the tier list of the Long John box bikes, but I'll include some trikes or cargo bike brands if they belong in this list. There's two ways of looking at these brands. One are traditional brands that have seen that there's some potential in box bikes or long johns, and they started to produce one. And on the other hand, we have new brands that only make these types of bikes, cargo bikes, and actually have grown a specific expertise in a very short time. These two types of brands are competing with one another, and of course you also have competition from brands from one country, say France, and brands from another country, Denmark or Germany, all competing for the same European and even global market. But so enough talk, let's go over the brands. I've decided to categorize them per country, and let's start with those two important countries, the Netherlands and Denmark. And let's start with the king of the Bakfiets, Urban Arrow. You might have heard of them. They've been around for a long time, and they were also one of the first, at least in the Netherlands and in Europe in general, to really make the pioneering electric Bakfiets cargo bike. They're also in luck because one of the things I was going to say about Urban Arrow is it's been 10 years and we still haven't seen a new real design or change in their cargo bike. It's been upgraded non-stop and it's really one of the best performing bikes if you look at the price quality features. But in the Netherlands, they're known to go for that price and they don't add anything unnecessary, making the Urban Arrow not a premium cargo bike, but rather one that fits for everything and everyone. The last few years they've also been focusing on their B2B designs, so they have these tenders where the box or the tires in front are changed and it's really meant for heavy duty cargo. As I was saying, they're in luck because they just released their newest version, the Family Next, and we can see here that it's basically their same design again, so they're taking all the pros with them, but they're changing quite a few aspects to make sure that it feels like a new bike and it can handle the competition, because all of a sudden the market's full of long john cargo bikes. A real improvement is, well, you can see it here, is that suspension. They didn't have that, and that was something that a lot of people were asking for, that you notice, maybe not in the Netherlands where you have good infrastructure, but outside of the Netherlands where that's not the same, you might need it. The lights in the box is also something really nice. It's a feature that we saw on the Tenways, and that was pretty obvious that it was coming to other brands as well. Apart from that, they've also changed their design of the bin a bit, but it basically looks kind of the same, which is good because a lot of people know their brand this way. They've also been focusing on accessories because that's one area where you can differentiate from others and convince parents. Usability and... So, where does that put them on the tier list? Well, Let's say Urban Arrow used to be, the S brand. They were the first, they were the pioneers, they did everything right, and they had the best design as well as the best components. Now, it's been, let's say, 10 years and they have improved, but they've slowly lost that we're the best kind of status. So where does that put them on the tier list? Well, so let's put them in the A tier, solid A tier. Second in line is less known, but is also quite a big brand in the Netherlands. Big brand as in not known by many people, but they probably sold more cargo bikes than you can imagine. The brand is also weird, it's Bakfiets.nl, as if they had their website and they made a logo for their website and it became popular, so they never changed it. But anyway, they're there, they're known, and they are growing abroad as well, even with that odd name. If we visit their website, we notice that while they do make good models and they have Shimano and Bosch, they look a bit less blitz than others. This is a typical Dutch design. This is the Dutch Bakfiets and it has the wooden box just like it used to in the past. Dutch brands want simplicity because their infrastructure is quite good and they have a culture of driving with cargo bikes, so they feel safer than others. That said, they do make good e-bikes. They're qualitative, strong enough, they have good engines, good battery, good technology, and because they're so simple, they're also kept cheaper than others, with some of those unnecessary features maybe. So if we go to the tier list and we check them there, well, let's call them a solid B, standing for benchmark. They really are the benchmark for what makes a good brand. They focus on utility first, the performance second, as well as the safety and comfort. The price, or going into that higher price segment, is definitely not a priority for them. A brand where that might be a priority is Lovens, a third Dutch brand from the Optima group. They really do want to stand for high quality and high safety and have all the parts and pieces that make this a premium cargo bike. In the Netherlands you had the choice between Urban Arrow, Carqon, which we'll follow up on, and then Lovens, and because those were your three options, this Lovens actually sold really well because it was the most premium out there at that moment. It was also very well reviewed. I haven't driven it myself, but I've heard it's quite a good e-bike. They have all the elements to make this a premium bike and they make it available in different variations. You have the Lovens S85, S75 as well as the S50. So where do they stand on this tier list? Well, they're definitely not B because they've done quite a good job. Their reviews are excellent. They're not the super innovators either. They just made a premium version of something, so we're gonna put them right next to Urban Arrow and keep them on the right side because Urban Arrow was first. They do have a better price quality comparison, and with that newest design I'm sure they can compete with that premiousness that Lovens offers. There's also others that compare to Lovens that might be a bit better, so we're just gonna keep it there. Next up is Carqon. Carqon has two models, or had, I'm not sure if it's been discontinued, but they had this model that was very interesting because it had a door in the box, designed to let the kids in and out. Now, a door does, let's say, lower the structural strength of the box and does have an influence on safety should there be a heavy crash or whatnot, but the addition in utility was really nice. You don't have to lift your kids over that 60-70 centimeters, and for some parents that might make a big difference. Quickly looking over their designs, we see the Classic, the one still available it seems, as well as the Cruise, which is similar but also has that extra neck feature to protect the kids' heads and necks. Before I forget, I'm doing a giveaway of these nice reflective stickers. These are black stickers, so on a black frame you won't see them in the day, but as you can see they become white or reflective when in light. All you need to do to win this is to like, subscribe and leave a comment. Should be a nice comment in line with YouTube guidelines, and I'm not sure how, but I'll pick a winner at the end of the week and I will send this to you after I contact you. I also don't have a sponsor for this video, so quick shout out to Douze Cycles who have given me a cargo bike to test this week. A review from that will follow shortly. Let's get started. They also really want to belong in that premium cargo bike segment, but as you'll see, it's getting quite crowded in there. So if we go back to the tier list, Carqon used to be A level, but then again they're really going towards B if they don't come with anything new. Anyway, let's say they cover the benchmark for a premium model, so I'll place them right here. That door does leave the door open, pun intended, to go up a level, but then again we see that it's missing from their second design, so maybe it wasn't that good or had some issues. Let's leave them there for now. Next up, Tenways. Surprisingly, because last year they wouldn't even be mentioned in the list of cargo bikes, and now with their Cargo 1 released this year, they actually make a shot at selling quite a few. Because they're aiming for that urban aero segment, the price quality. They're definitely not a premium bike, but they want to do everything or tick as much as every box so that you feel like you get the most out of a lower priced cargo bike. So where does that put us on that tier list? Well, I haven't tested it out, so I'm gonna put it on the benchmark. Reviews have been quite good, but it could be that Tenways quickly falls off the wagon if that is not confirmed in the nearby future. Let's see what that brings. And that also covers the Dutch brands. And with those covered, we can move over to the second European country that makes these cargo bikes, Denmark. Starting with a brand that most people know, they're just like Urban Aero is one of the pioneers. The Bullets, if I say that name, most people already know what I'm talking about. But the Larry versus Harry is a Danish brand that really stands for a community. It seems like their bike is so loved by that community that no other bike can even come close to it. The Bullet is initially meant to move cargo around and not necessarily kids. And that's exactly why it rides so well, because the focus was on the rider first. There's other brands that also attempt that, but Larry versus Harry just has that experience and they have that design that's already finished, so they have that market locked up. They have a very enthusiastic community behind them, and because their bike's so light and focuses on that driver feel and driving ability, they also have non-electric long johns, and also they're one of the first and one of the only ones that's really respected in that area. So Larry versus Harry is definitely the S tier, or the first in the S tier. Again, Urban Aero could have been there as well, but Larry versus Harry just, they made it. I know very few Larry versus Harry riders who would switch to another brand. They're usually happy, they have very little cons. And it's a bike that's used in so many aspects, B2B, B2C, parents, kids, cargo, but also racing. They have cargo bike races. And the Larry versus Harry is one that performs. It's really a bike that allows you to go fast. And as you can see, while the design is quite simple and they always use the same frame and there's nothing that special about it, it's just that well done. Quality is key in their design. Simple but qualitative. You don't need much to make it good, and that's what they want and have proven. Amongst the Danish brands, there is also a second brand that's quite well known. It's called Winther. Winther is less known because they usually make trikes or tricycles, but as we saw in the latest Eurobike 2024, they're also focusing on a long john format this year. Winther is also a company that's been around for more than 30 years, let's say, and they've always focused on cargo bikes. Obviously, these used to not be electric, but now all of their designs have become electric, although the non-electric stay available for those who want that. Special about their design is their steering mechanism. The front tires pivot onto the frame, and so the box turns with the steering wheel, or the steering wheel turns with the box. Apart from parents and their kids, these bikes are also used by dog owners or in care to move senior people around or to just go on biking trips with them. Winther isn't that blitz Winther isn't that blitz or popular, but they still are a solid benchmark in that market. You can even say they belong in the A tier because out of all the brands that offer such bikes and such designs, they really do the effort of innovating, and that's something that's scarce in the trike market. Next up is Omnium. And Omnium is also one of those special Danish brands, first focusing on drivable non-electric cargo bikes. Special about theirs is the design of the front loader. It's not a box, it's not a long john, it's something else. And then since recently they shifted to creating electric models when their bikes are used in, hilly areas or heavy cargo. If we go to their website, we can instantly see what makes their design special. They use that front small wheel and the big large back wheel, but they don't have that long john design. They are a front loader, but without the long john, without that typical box area. Because Omnium was one of the first to go that way, they also definitely belong in that S tier. It is a special type of cargo bike, so you can't really compare it to the others, but if it's about what tier they belong in, I would say the S tier for trying to innovate the market. Another one innovating the market, again a Danish brand, last one that we'll cover in this list today, is Black Iron Horse. What I noticed was their steering mechanism is different from others. The steering mechanism is not located in the front wheels, but actually in the rear wheel, making it very odd to drive, or you just need to get used to it, I guess, but also very innovative. On their first model, the Ibex, you see they have the steering mechanism to the front tire, but since recently they have this Pony and Poly, which have that weird rear wheel that decides where you go. As you can tell, they focus on kids, dog owners, but also cargo, loads of cargo. With the steering mechanism being in the rear wheel, you don't have that cargo pushing down on the steering mechanism, and technically you become much more maneuverable, which becomes interesting when you're a cargo bike. So yeah, definitely one that I have to test out still, but definitely one to place in this brand tier list. And so where do they belong on that list? Well, again, the Danish brands to cover the S tier. I see this rear wheel steering as an innovation that again will definitely change the market. They are the first. Now let's see how it works out in the future, in the long term, but in theory it definitely does make sense. Okay, short analysis. Netherlands is losing from Denmark. But let's not go too fast. First, we are going to cover the French Douze Cycles because this is really a cargo bike brand. It's a brand that was founded on the idea of making a box bike, long john. They made one, it was successful. They've now made a second version and also are growing into the long tail area. The benefit of such brands is they don't know how to make a normal bike. They only really know how to make a cargo bike, and that's their expertise. That's what they're good at, and that's what they're constantly developing to do. If we look at another brand, for example Tenways or one of the German giants that will pass by soon enough, they have a whole range of bikes. And so for every dime that they spend in the company, they need to divide it between all those categories, while companies like Douze or Urban Aero can focus on their segment, their market, the cargo bike. And so let's take a look at what Douze does. It's a French cargo bike, so their design will be more focused towards the French and even the Belgian audience, because they do have a small link to Belgium. Their first designs were made in Belgium. And what's different about them compared to the Dutch or the Germans, for example? Well, the Dutch focus a lot on that price quality, less features into safety and comfort. We see that with the Danish as well. Those two markets where the cargo bike was known earlier has less need for change and people are less keen on innovation, where the new markets people need to be convinced. And so extra features such as safety or comfort for the cargo, the kids, the users, it can all be used to convince these people to go into that segment. When we look at Douze and we see what they want to make for the French market, we notice that they focus on fast, light, maneuverable, whilst having comfort and safety, but not necessarily as a priority. This Heta, for example, it doesn't look big and bulky. It's not heavy and it drives kind of like a normal bike, except it's much longer and you have that big box. If we compare that box to the German boxes, for example, we notice that they have much thicker walls in Germany, focusing on that safety aspect. There where Douze is like, we have much more volume for the same space. So it's really a give and take. Going to our tier lists, where does that put Douze? Well, definitely in the A tier, maybe even S tier, as they're really using premium pieces on the bike, but they're not necessarily innovating the market in a way that it's obvious. It's obvious when you drive with them, they feel like a Larry versus Harry, that drivability is really keen and key in their bike, but still it feels like they could be doing even better. As I'm too conflicted, I'll leave them there and see what the rest does to influence that. Because up next is Iumentum. And Iumentum, quite new, is actually a mix of what I thought was Larry versus Harry and Omnium. They're German and they might have taken some inspiration from the Danish or the Dutch, but this design is really blitz, but especially super light. And that's what makes this bike so interesting, focusing on that driver, focusing on speed and a sportive sitting position. It's really a bike that doesn't need to be electric. Of course, if you're going for that heavy cargo and you're not using this to transport a kid or two, you could go for the electric version and have that extra assistance. Of course, that makes the bike 5 to 6 kilos heavier. Again, doubting heavily if I should put them in the S tier, I will currently move them to the A tier. And sticking to German brands for a while now, because there's quite a few and maybe they're not the most innovative off the bat. As soon as they go to a market, they really aim to take over that market. CaGo is one of those brands. Germany has a heavy focus on safety, or at least much more than the Dutch or the Danish do. And so we see with this CaGo probably the most safe cargo bike out there at this moment. I say this because there's no crash tests to prove anything, but if a crash test would be done, they have focused on winning that test. At Eurobike or any other bike fair that they do, they cut that box open so that you could see how thick and how well structured the inside of that box is. It's really meant to keep your kids safe. It has that upper neck guard as well as the cover to make sure nothing can touch your kid. Apart from that, of course, it uses all the premium pieces, engines, gearing system, brakes, everything. And the design is useful so that you as a parent have nothing to worry about. It almost feels as if I'm describing the best cargo bike for parents, let's say. But then again, you need to know that this bike is also one of the most expensive. As always, quality comes at a certain price. Now, not only for parents, because not that long ago there was a YouTuber who went gravel biking with this cargo bike. And that tells you that, these premium pieces are qualitative and can handle any terrain and any surface. What I also like about CaGo is that they invented a new type or a new segment of cargo bikes. I call this the 3-loader or the 2-loader because you have 1, 2 or even 3 loading platforms. And if you look at how compact it is for having 3 loading platforms, that's quite amazing. It's something that you have to respect. It's a new design, it's revolutionary. They create a segment and soon enough someone else will start copying them. CaGo is a new brand, but definitely one there to stay. If we look at our tier list, man, way too many brands in the S, it seems. But we're moving on to Easy Bikes, ESY. A brand so difficult to type that you can almost never find its website, especially looking into Google. Good luck. And Easy is just like Tenways, a brand that I wouldn't consider for this list until I ran into them at Cycling World in Düsseldorf and then Eurobike again in Frankfurt. And what's obvious there is they're aiming for this cargo bike segment. They just released their box bike, the Long John, as well as a fully suspended long-tail cargo bike. And that's quite new, quite unique. I don't know any other brand that does that, but for another video. In this video, we'll cover their box bike, and that's quite spectacular by itself because it's quite compact in comparison to the typical Long John. And it's really meant to have that in the city protect your kids' safety cargo bike. Easy also realized that usability or usage was one of the most important features for parents, and so apart from their bike being compact and easy to use, you also get a slide door to get the kids in and out of the box. Because Easy is quite new in this cargo bike design, I didn't want to place them up too high either. It's their first attempt, and while they've done a good job, we still need to figure out if people will like it and if it's as usable as they say it is. That said, at Cycling World and at Eurobike with their special design, they took away plenty of awards. Because these awards, in my opinion, are just jury members giving an opinion, just like I am now, I'm gonna place them in the A tier. We'll see if time puts them in the S tier. They're also using that pinion MGU. I'm not sure if it's already on this box bike, but if it is, it's gonna go up there for sure. Next in line is Riese Muller. Now, earlier I spoke about having two types of brands, you know, the giants that are now making a box bike, or the new brands that have started their brand with the box bike and have that experience, that extra knowledge. Well, Riese Muller is actually a bit of both. They're one of those powerhouses, not the biggest brand, but definitely a very big German brand known for its quality, innovation, research and design, whatnot. But they're not really a long john or cargo bike brand. However, that said, out of all these big brands that are now joining the fray, they are the first to have done it. Riese Muller has 4 different cargo bikes in long john format. That's way more than any other brand, even Kettler. And that's why Riese Muller definitely belongs in that S tier. I'm not gonna lie, we're gonna just shove them right up in there because they're constantly adapting the market and making it better. They have high premium quality cargo bikes, and on a lot of comparison websites and lists, those bikes are the best in the test. Obviously, they belong in the highest price segment, but if you can pay them, then usually that's the go-to choice. Ever since Riese Muller as a bigger bike brand pioneered in doing so, we noticed that other brands weren't scared to do the same. Velo de Ville, Bergamont, Kettler, they all have long tails and box bikes or long johns available at this time, but they didn't before. Velo de Ville, for example, who's next in line, has just released their long tail and their freight cargo bike. What you instantly notice here is that it is their first design, and while there's nothing all too new and special, they focused on having premium parts available so that instantly we can count on quality within that market. On the other hand, as these are big brands who have focus in other categories, and this is really the start for them, the starting category, we notice that they're a bit more bulky, a bit heavier, and have less specially developed features. As this is their first design and there's nothing so special about it except for a good solid quality, we'll put this Velo de Ville in the B tier. Definitely not a bad bike, but with so many other innovative brands and designs out there, it's easy to look ordinary even when you're brand new. But for these brands, that's sometimes the point, starting this segment, not leading the segment, and seeing where it goes. Same goes for Bergamont, for example, which is also a German brand, and will immediately put them right next to Velo de Ville. They also made a cargo bike, adding one to their lineup, just like the other brands. Again, here we see that while their design is good and qualitative and has some nice features, there's nothing really special about it. They were quite safe whilst developing it. There's also very little information and media, so you can instantly see that they're not really focusing on this segment. They just don't want to fall out of the boat, sort of speak. Next up is Kettler, another German giant who's clearly making effort to catch up to Riese Muller in the cargo bike segment, or at least in Germany. A few years ago, Kettler wouldn't be on this list, but as you can read on their website, I don't even need to tell you, they've expanded their cargo bike range. And not just a little bit, they have quite a few models available now. At Eurobike we saw that there's again new cargo bikes being added, so I'm sure their website will be updated soon. Kettler stands for high quality, and just like Riese Muller, they spend a lot of money in development and innovations. As you can see here on their bike, the most special thing is that steering mechanism. It doesn't use a front fork and it's quite revolutionary. Kettler uses that same steering mechanism on their other cargo bikes, and now they have 3 models. Where does that put Kettler on the tier list? Well, let's just give him the A tier because of that steering mechanism, the quality they offer, and the accessories they have available. But let's now quickly cover this brand, which is Elian, because they're actually the inventors of that steering mechanism. Let's quickly slide them into the S tier and check out their website, because it is quite a special brand. Elian actually makes handmade cargo bikes with that special steering mechanism. The guy that developed this is the owner and the founder of Elian, and while he has some models available for B2C or for purchase, let's say, he's mainly focused on inventing new steering mechanisms. Other companies or brands such as Kettler can purchase these mechanisms to put on their bikes. That means that Kettler might not belong in this A grade if it wasn't for Elian. Alright, time for a quick analysis intermezzo. So we've covered quite a few new brands, we've covered quite a few big brands that have joined the market, and we see that I've placed way too many brands in the S tier as well as the B tier. So what I'm gonna do is slide all the B tiers down, create the S tier as the B tier, and see who really separates himself from the others. Maybe that's a better division. We still have some brands left, and because we just did those powerhouses from Germany, let's cover the powerhouses from other countries, but do this quite rapidly. First up, Dutch Gazelle. They have the Gazelle Mackie, which is a simple design, uses all the premium aspect, kind of looks like that typical Dutch long john design, but has these cutouts, let's call them, for the kids so that they can see more of the road, whilst the box stays high so that they're well protected. It also provides an easy step in, so it does have some benefits in usage. I haven't heard much bad about that Mackie ever since they were. The Mackie was also recently upgraded and now it has all those premium pieces again. It's also available at a good price, and so let's give this Mackie a B tier. Moving over to Cannondale, we also noticed that they put some effort into this cargo bike. It's really cool looking, it's a bit long and bulky, but you have some benefits, especially those headlights. That's quite cool. With the 2 child seats and the long space available, it also seems to be suitable for bigger kids and to carry them along for an older age, let's say. So this Cannondale also gets positive notes and moves into that B tier. Trek, another one of these giants, an American company, also has the Fetch Plus available. Now it's quite bulky and I haven't ridden it myself, but I'm gonna place this in the C tier. It feels that, just like the others, they have quite a good bike, as in bike parts, but they need some of that expertise to make it one of the better cargo bikes. In France, we also have the cheaper brand B-Twin, sold by the store Decathlon, but it looks quite bulky, and although they have a lot of accessories, they don't look very aerodynamic or to be used for a very long time. That said, it's available at a cheaper price. Alright, so where does that put them? Let's for now put them in the D segment, or give them the benefit of the doubt and put them next to these giants. I'm not sure, they do speak to quite a segment. They make it possible for some people, to have cargo bikes. It's an attractive price, it is a mid-hub engine. Let's give them the benefit of the doubt and leave them in the C tier. Muller is known for their compact cargo bike. They had a foldable box and their bike is quite compact. So it was a good alternative for people in the city looking for something, that looks like a normal e-bike or that feels like a normal e-bike in size and dimension, but is actually a cargo bike. Muller was first and quite revolutionary, so they were A-level until they had quite a bit of competition and they lacked the ability to change fast enough. So also here, let's give them the benefit of the doubt of staying in that A segment, as they currently are still dominating. I was doubting because the second brand, Carlos Mobility, is right up there with them. They're later and slower. They made somewhat of a copy of what they did, but at the same time they also innovated that copy quite a bit, and that's why they belong here, or maybe even already here. Scooting this one back. That does look like a good fit. The innovation that Carlos brought to the already compact Muli is that you can fold it in two, and that does make an extra difference when we're talking about the segment of people in the city. Especially if you need to store it, looks like an even better solution. That said, the Muli is already quite compact, so maybe that's not necessary. These two can compete with each other quite a bit, and then we have Riese Muller with a carry that finishes off this segment of compact cargo bikes for now. H&F Nikolai is also a German brand. I'm actually mistaken here because these brands have split. You have Nikolai and you have H&F, and H&F has this CD2 cargo bike. Also there, it's more of a trike design, but we see that the market for cargo bikes is slowly shifting towards that area, especially when we're carrying heavy loads. And so this H&F CD2 definitely belongs up there in the B section. Johansen is a Swedish brand that belongs to the Pierre group, and we notice that their designs are also quite innovative. I haven't tested any of them out. They don't seem to be focusing on transporting kids, although it is possible when you look at their front loader. But if we're purely talking brand and quality wise, then they might belong in that B section, although all the way at the end. We'll have to restructure this one at the end as well. Max and Malion is a German brand that I first saw at Cycling World, but when we saw them at Eurobike, they were a hot topic, meaning a lot of people were trying them out, they were talking about them, and they seem to have made quite a few waves in that market. Also part of that trike community, they look really cool, they look high quality, and you get the impression that we're moving into a sportive segment here. So focusing on wheelchair users, dogs, and just transporting people, it's really a brand to keep an eye on. I'm going to place them in the S tier, giving them the benefit of the doubt, they're really doing something new, and if they stay there next year, we'll see, but as of now, I'm placing them up there. Next up is Batavus. It's a Dutch brand that belongs to the Assel group, which is a very large group, and you might know this brand under a different name. Raleigh is one of them, and Winora is the other. Again, a group or a brand or brands that have a lot of different bikes. They're not specifically aiming for cargo bikes, but they do have one in their arsenal or portfolio. Batavus is not known to be one of the premium brands. They also look at price quality, and so let's place these bikes here right in front of Between. Baboo is another one of those brands that you might have heard of. It's the last brand that I'll cover for this list. Unit, Chaik, Achille and Via, just giving you a shout out. You look really cool, especially Unit and Chaik. They belong, well, maybe here and maybe here. Well, maybe it's worth covering them quickly. So here is the Unit cargo bike. It's really nice, it's quite special, it's a front loader. They're now making this available for kids, but it didn't start that way. It was usually just for cargo. Now that they've proven how it works, the steering mechanism underneath the cargo area, it's really something special. So going back to tier list, let's just put them up on top. They are making something new and they're doing it quite well. And so maybe they just earned that benefit of the doubt. Also noticed that Cycling World, they took a prize of best cargo design, so why not? Chaik is also one of those compact cargo bikes with a front loader, but they made it quite special with a tilting mechanism, so a trike instead of using two wheels in total. Chaik seems to be like a very nice compact version of a cargo bike for parents, but as you can see here, they now have some cargo options as well. So really worth mentioning in this list as well. Alright, the last one on our list is Baboo, which is a Dutch brand that used to belong somewhere, let's say in the C level, but recently there were some events that made them drop down to the D tier. Like I said in the beginning, the Dutch had less of a need for safety. It's embedded into their culture to drive around on these cargo bikes, and so even a wooden box, that was no issue to transport 1, 2, 3 kids with cargo, whatever. But there were some issues. Apparently the frames were not that strong and there was a tendency for them to break, and the brand, instead of acting upon it and fixing it, decided to try and cover it up, I guess. It does harm your reputation quite a bit. And that quite does it for this list of cargo bike brands, a tier list that should give you a good impression of who is what and where and when. Let's put them here and start the finalization process. Larry versus Harry owns their spot there. Omnium could go a step lower. Elian, although not really known, definitely do belong there as well. And then we go down the list with the people who have the benefit of the doubt. Moving over to the A tier, we see Riese Muller, CaGo, Douze Cycles, Carlos. That seems to be in check. Quickly reviewing that B tier, it seems that everyone belongs in their spots. So this is the first WattsNotGas Cargobike tier list, brands, not models, of 2024. Now it should be obvious that there's quite a bit of brands that are not featured here. If you guys are out there, I'm really sorry. Send me a heads up and I'll try to include you next time. But I've tried to focus on the brands that are most sold, either in Europe or worldwide, wherever I got my data from. I hope you enjoyed the video. No, it was quite long, also for me, keep that in mind, but it was useful. Now we have this list, we can work upon it, and I'll make sure to update it in 2025. Keep in mind, giveaway, subscribe, like, leave a comment, and I'll figure out how to send it to one of you guys. And I'll also make sure to make some extra content on these brands and the models that they have available, so I can prepare for my list of best cargo bikes, models, not brands. That said, I wish you adieu, and I'll see you, or you'll see me, next time. Ciao.